So I hope everyone is keeping safe and healthy. So welcome to today's roundtable sessions. So we do run this quarterly roundtables supported by GovTech DS AID team. And joining me today is Joseph and his team, and also my colleague Charlie, which I'll ask him to make his introduction later. So just a quick agenda for today. So the topic is chosen based on the polling that we have done within the data science community team. So I think there's probably an overwhelming request to run this topic on how to actually help to prepare agencies to become a data provider and recipients, and again how to run open government initiatives. So today we prepared a number of use cases to share with you, and we also like to have a discussion with you in terms of the challenges and especially the opportunities that you see. So we have colleagues joining from the SNDGO team, the Government Data Office team. So we will also hear from their views. Yeah, just before I kick it off, Joseph, would you just help us with an opening for today's session?
Yep. Thanks, CK. So first of all, I think a very big thanks to Qlik, CK and his team for running such a session. I think the business of data is not unique to government. So we really value, and I hope I speak for everyone here, that we really value sessions like this whereby we can find out what the industry is doing, what the world is, how they're approaching data, how are they getting better at using data for their work. So thanks for that. A big thanks to SNDGO also. I think we have Elvin and Gail from the SNDGO Government Data Office, and I think it's very appropriate because today we're going to talk about sharing of data, open data, things like that. Which I was sharing with the Qlik team that where Singapore government is concerned, we're not quite at the zero part. We do have data.gov. We have a lot of agencies, pushing ahead with a lot of initiatives on that, but are we at the peak of what we can achieve? Probably not. So I think this session will hopefully open our eyes. We get to learn from others. Maybe a quick intro to our team here as well. Some of you might have come through the community, so you might already know some of us. But I'm Joseph from the Capability Development team within GovTech, Data Science and AI Division. With me, I have Mindy, Nicole, our community managers, I have Li Xing, and I've also Hao Chuan here. Collectively, what do we do? I think we're in the business of trying to upskill public officers in the use of data, uplift public agencies in their data maturity, and also trying to take care of putting into practice all these wonderful theories and initiatives and resources that we've created into practice back in GovTech. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. How does it manifest? There will be things like community meetup sessions, the Data Science Connect, maybe just to do a bit of advertisement. There's one coming up on the 12th of November. So you can check that out. The Data Arcade Tournament, which is into its final stages now. Competency framework, training roadmaps, workshop sessions, things like that. Okay, I think suffice to say is summary, anything that you need to do with data in government, you can really approach our team as a go-to point, and we will help direct you to all the various resources that we have across government. So I think enough from me. I would really love to hear this presentation as well. So I'll pass the time back to CK and the team. Yeah.
Right, thanks Joseph. So thanks again giving us this opportunity. Again, today use case sharing is something that we hope to inspire the Data Arcade Tournament in a few weeks' time. So we prepared a number of use cases. So, but just to kind of set the context in here, talking about open government data. In fact, this is not new, right? I mean, this is already in a couple of years. Various governments around the globe is having different initiatives when it comes to open government data. In the industries that we are seeing a real pickup within open banking, and we are enjoying the benefits of open banking, right? For example, now in any bank's online banking, you actually get a visibility of all your financial statements from different banks, and even your insurance as well. So, that is the advantage where open data comes to be. Right, when it comes to open government data, right, being just philosophy is really about setting a set of policies, which I think Singapore government have done a great job. I mean, I've saw some papers that's been written already years back, right? This is not new. I think where we want to share is what the examples and use cases. So we're starting to see across the world, in terms of benefits, like for example, transparency, right? And transparency is not necessarily about, access to data. I think we have open data.gov, great. It's also about sharing and reuse, right? When we see some agency doing that as well. But often I think it is about understanding the materials that needs to be analyzed and visualized upon, right? Getting behind the data, right? And the second one, I think this is probably more important in this world that we're living now. I call it new normal. It's really about releasing the social and commercial value. Obviously, our life has been turned upside down. When we go into the new normal, right, we're changing constantly everywhere with the regulation, right? So data is going to be a key resource, helping our businesses, especially the smaller businesses, helping to create more innovative business and services that can deliver both social and commercial value. And the third benefit, right? I think we're pretty lucky here. I think in a democratic society, like we get to make our voices. Although I think this comes during election time every 4 to 5 years. But again, by opening up data, citizens like ourselves, you and me, can be enabled to be much more directly involved in the decision-making process. Again, this is more than just transparency as in the first way. It's really about read-write society. You being able to impact, you able to knowing what's happening in the process of governance and not someone telling you what is happening. And we've seen great examples across the world. For example, I think we've seen, for example, in San Francisco, the city authorities, estimated there was 4 in phone queries after it made transport data available in early 2012. And it saved them more than $1 million, right, from a cost saving. And likewise, making data public can help corruptions. I think I saw an example for a Mexican think tank. And I know there's also talking about the Pandora today in the newspapers, right, talking about investigative journalism. But I think government is taking a proactive step. And Charlie has a great story. I wouldn't review any of it. It's a great story to tell that as well. Now, I think as agency, as we see at Qlik, our point of view is as agencies start to prepare yourself for open government data initiative already planned, or some of you are already in that development phase, it's crucial that you understand that there is a dual role here, right? Both as a data provider to different stakeholders, be it the public, the industry players, private enterprises, or other government agency that requires your data to help them to make a decision. But also recipient from various data sources, as you can see from the left-hand side, right? You will receive data from agencies, you have your industry players, you have your market data you need to get from, and increasingly, right, IoT data, right? Whether it's sustainability, you have solar panels informations, or down to cameras information. So again, with 5G coming out, more of this data will be one out of IoT. But I think where I want to highlight here is speed is crucial here. Right, the stakeholders will want to move at the speed of data, meaning being able to make decisions, almost at the near real time. Moving away from batch processing or batch transfer, which sometimes take a day, or sometimes even worse, take about 3 days to even get information. And this is really important, right? For example, when pandemic hits, one of our customer, Queensland Health Department or eHealth, was charged with collecting ICU data in real time from hospitals across the state. Now, everyone who tested positive for COVID must stay in hospital in Queensland during that time, right? Now, they could actually go in a conventional, way of doing batch processing or even just API calls, but being able to leverage a change data capture technology, they're able to replicate data from the various source systems. And again, without impacting or increasing the load on the source system. This is something really important because you don't want to stress up the source system, right? But again, this is something not possible with traditional batch processing APIs. Again, something that you want to start to look at. But again, the journey does not stop at just collating or collecting this data. How to make it available with different stakeholders, both internally and externally. Now, again, with open government data, the aim is really to make agency data, available to many others, right? From public, all the way to industry players to government agency. Again, Charlie will be sharing more examples in his presentation. But before I pass on to him, I thought to just get a polling questions for everyone out here to just get your view, right? What are the key opportunities that you see with open government data today, right? So that should be a screen that's popping up for you right now. Is it about improved governance, giving out more government transparency? Is it about easy access to information and data? Is it about improved citizen service, new businesses, or better quality of life? Right, we just hold it about another few more seconds. And again, during this conversation, don't hesitate to take yourself off mute if you have any question to ask. If not, then there's a chat box or a Q&A box. You actually can type in your questions. We'll be monitoring that, and we'll come back to your questions after. All right, I think we got a good response now. So Tony, thanks. Yeah, I think there's overwhelming benefits, opportunity about easier access to government information and data, followed closely by improved citizen services. Again, I think this ties in very closely to the use case we're going to share, but I'm not going to waste any more time. I'll introduce Charlie, who is going to take us through the next segment of the presentation. Charlie?
Thanks, EK. Good morning, everyone. Afternoon for me. I'm based over in Sydney, Australia, so joining you guys from across the ocean. But my role here at Qlik, I've been with Qlik now for 6 years and was a former customer of Qlik, worked in the New South Wales public health system. So my role is more on the solutions and industry side, working with our government and healthcare clients across Asia Pacific and more broadly the globe to share success and solutions and help organizations not having to reinvent the wheel and get value from their investments quicker. So my role is great because I don't have to sit in any of the commercial discussions, but really about helping customers learn from others and share, because as you know, in government, there's no such thing as plagiarism. We're all able to help each other and learn from each other and get some value that way. So just bear with me as I share my screen really quickly. I'll just get this going. So I'm just going to be talking to you, as CK said, some open data in action, giving you some perspectives around the globe and where other government agencies are using or promoting data more openly and transparently across their borders, which is now seen as almost a mandatory requirement across most proactive governments, and a really strong way to engage their citizens and as CK said, that get some value from entrepreneurship and other ideas using data to drive some positive change across their countries. So we talk about, and CK mentioned three sort of guiding areas of why open data, but the 6 sort of open data principles that a lot of organizations sort of abide by is really these are on the screen. So having the data being open by default, publication for all, government is justify why data should be kept closed. If it's for security and data protection reasons, then that's fine. But generally, most other data that government holds should be open and accessible by all. It needs to be timely and comprehensive. There's no point publishing data that's 6 months, a year, even older, of making that available. It needs to be really relevant and it's an original unmodified form, so people can really see the true value and how governments are also using the data and see how they might be able to use that data to drive innovation or entrepreneurship. Obviously, it needs to be accessible and usable, ensuring the data is machine readable and easy to find, importantly, free of charge. So initially when governments first started going down this open data route in the early to mid 2000s, some agencies were charging for this, and they saw this as almost prohibiting the use and the whole idea of open data and sharing. So they've taken away that sort of remit and just making it sure that it's free of charge for people to get access to the information. The information needs to be comparable and interoperable, so we need to have commonly agreed data standards and ensure that there's high quality data sets. So not that they're filtered with data quality issues and errors and that you might be ticking a box by publishing this information, but it's really not usable by anyone. There's no interoperability of the data, and it really renders it useless. The fifth one is around improved governance and citizen engagement, and this is a real key one here. So that, you know, letting citizens and others in government, even in media and researchers, have a better idea of what the officials and politicians are doing and how they can use that to spur economic development and entrepreneurship in their countries as well. You know, we've seen, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the use case from the UK around the metro train line, the underground train line, where the government has tried to spend millions and millions of dollars on developing a timetable and a route and analytic solution for the system. And they were struggling with that, and they felt, well, a better way to do that might be just to publish that information all publicly and let these, you know, really clever tech agencies or independents use that data and develop their own solutions. So now they've done that. So if you click on, you know, go to the Apple Store, the Google Play Store, and Google and search for the London Underground, you'll see a whole raft of different applications that are available for purchase for download based on that whole premise. You know, it was a way to engage and still service the community by giving the data free and letting other people be able to innovate and entrepreneur out of that as well. But many governments are already underway, as we've spoken about. This is not new, as CK and Joseph mentioned, and some of them have gone down a path of providing very rudimentary access to data. You know, most government agencies now have a data.gov website. This whole new movement kicked off in the early to mid 2000s. And most agencies have these, where they have the data sets, lots of data sets available to download in different forms, whether it's zip, JPEG, HTML, CSV, whatever it might be. And Australia is no different, they do that. But I think where we've seen that some agencies and some governments, like yourselves in Singapore, are taking it a bit further now, where you're using the data.gov platform as a way to provide some high-level visualizations or high-level overview of some key indicators to give the user some idea of what they might want to interact with, which data set they might want to play with or download and get a deeper dive into. But there's no real set best practice yet across government around this. So there's still varying degrees of access and user interactivity with these data.gov websites. But one government, and there are a number of other governments that have pivoted recently, is Brazil. And I'll cover their story over the next few slides. So Brazil's catalyst for change is most government agencies now, they go through a survey or annual survey around ranking their OpenGov or open data initiatives. And they, in South America and Latin America, they were seen as kind of 18th in their region with a score of 59, which was above average, but it was still very poor for what they did. But this is back in 2017, and they realized that they needed a change because in 2016, just months before the Summer Olympics were to be held in Rio, this is an actual image of a protest that took place with over 3 million citizens who took to the streets in Brazil, who were enraged at the level of corruption, recession, demanding the removal of the then president. And the reasons why is because the economy was shrinking, 3% year over year, and in the midst of the worst recession in a quarter of a century. But how did this corruption continue to be undiscovered for so long? It's really simple. It's because that the lack of transparency, no one inside or outside the government knew how much was being spent and for what services, with the exception of those profiting from it. So they were having a severe loss of trust from the citizens in the government, and they knew something had to change because there was no access to data. There was very little trust in the government and what they were doing, how they were spending their money, the health system, the education system, the police, the roads, everything was failing because money was being spent incorrectly, and corrupt officials were profiting from off the back of that. So what they did, they looked at what they were doing from the Brazil government in 2017. They saw that they were publishing a whole heap of information. There was 50 different federal agencies who were developing and providing information. They were making this information available, a lot of different subjects, lots of different formats, etc. But what they realized was that even though they were ticking a box, the many data sets weren't up to date. They were not user-friendly. No one actually knew once they had access to the information what they could do with it. And even once they did it, they have to spend a lot of time to make any sense of any information, to prepare it, to download it before doing anything with starting their analysis. So they knew they had to find a better way. So what they did is they looked at a new approach, and they designed one where access is delivered through user-friendly applications with characteristics as follows. You know, having a standard language, providing accurate and up-to-date information in near real time. They're able to offer some initial analysis, you know, with graphs and dynamic tables, and allow further drill down, similar to what the Singapore government site did, but they allowed further drill down to be able to go down. Lots more great interactivity and navigation for users, and the exportation of the data. So they still, if they wanted to do further development or entrepreneurship with that data, they were still able to extract that information to gain and get from there. So this was one of their first applications, and this is around the Ministry of Planning. It's like a pricing portal. So it's a public portal that allows officials to research, analyse and compare the prices practiced by the federal government since 2015 in the purchasing of every different materials and services. And the integration allows the price dashboard to be totally responsive, you know, allows officials to access it. So by officials, we mean anyone from the government, from the country. So citizens, journalists, researchers, etc., the media. Allows them to really access and deep dive into this information and start finding anomalies in this information or poor practices. And what they found was that, you know, some journalists who obviously campaigning for the removal of government and campaigning against the corruption and, you know, the complete disregard for the citizens, started finding all these anomalies in the data that were really hard to explain. And one example was they found that one government agency had spent over $10,000 on procuring some bottles of water, you know, drinking water, which is obviously a way to weed money in under the table to another contractor. And there were others around construction and other bits and pieces that were really dumbfounded the citizens, because they were so obvious. But once the data was made available, you could start piecing this information together. But the fact that it had never been shared before, it was never the data sets were never connected together before. It had remained hidden for so many years that people had gotten away with this blatant corruption for a very long time. So here, the new Ministry of Planning says with the price panel, we're rooting out the government corruption at its source. They can actually now drill down to the detail that they need to find which officials it is, which agencies they are in, and get them out. So these are some other examples around, you know, other apps that they've developed now across their portal. From pricing to staffing to government budgets to public procurement to the staffing workforce, the government workforce, you know, funds transferring, etc. So the list goes on. They've developed a whole raft of applications, and it's really around engaging the citizens and providing a complete level of transparency across their government and their agency. And these are a number of their applications. They're pinnacle ones, if you like, that are available and people regularly access, and there's more in development and constantly in development. The last one I'd like to touch on from Brazil is the COVID-19 example. And this is again a public website that is available. And we'll make sure these websites and these URLs are shared, and this deck can be shared with you guys afterwards as well, if you're curious to click in and start interacting with the data as well, and just seeing how they might work for you or get some ideas or inspiration. It might be of interest, so we can provide those to you. But in June last year, really at the height of the pandemic in Brazil, data relating to the pandemic had, without warning, just been removed from the Brazil Health Ministry website. And the government then announced that it would be stopped releasing the historical numbers on the deaths and the number of infections. And it just sparked a huge outrage amongst the citizens, and it was seen as an attempt again to cover up the worsening health crisis in the country and the government's lack of response. So I'm not sure if any of you followed the news back in last year, but around Brazil, the government almost denounced COVID, didn't think it was real, didn't really want to invest in the vaccine, in restrictions, in the masks and anything really. So the citizens were crying out because they could see what was happening around the world and how serious this disease was. And they were really upset with their government not paying attention and not taking it seriously enough, and thinking that it was a way for them to, again, hide some of their spend and realize that they didn't have money to invest more into their healthcare. So they created again another big stir. They took it to the Brazilian Supreme Court through campaigning and petitioning. And then the Supreme Court then ordered the federal administration to resume publishing the complete statistics on the pandemic. And then as a result as well, the incumbent health minister had to resign due to the increased pressure from the citizens and the media. But what they did is that they said at the time, the new platform obviously increases transparency and provides much more support to support better decision-making by the local health authorities, because it's now providing data in real time rather than these batch updates that were coming in daily or weekly. And not really given a proper picture of, where the impact was or which regions in the country were at most at risk. They'll able to start getting things more accurately and timely, so they can take more proactive steps to prevent any further spread or disease and death as well. So it just shows the power of the data, because the citizens started getting used to the amount of transparency across their government, and then all of a sudden when the government starts to pull the data, then it was going to create an uproar. They were thinking no one was going to notice, but the citizens do notice. They were using the data and leveraging their own data to get a complete view and build trust in the government. And it just shows that without the citizens engaged and the citizens believing and being trusting in your openness, then it was going to have a detrimental effect to your own position. So that was the Brazil example. So you can see that they've obviously gone from a completely different government of hiding in the shadows, transacting in the dark, to now being completely open and transparent. And it shows that this new government is really about a dawning of a new era, one that's led by transparency. And Qlik, we've been very fortunate to be able to support this effort and making all their transactions and all their data available and transparent, and in a way that's easy for people inside and outside the government to be able to interact and get a view from. So it's really incredible and uplifting to be a part of that, because change does take time. And in this case, in Brazil, like we saw with this COVID example, it's going to take time to reverse decades of and hundreds of years of corruption. But it's a good start, and it continues to evolve. And as citizens become more trusting and more aware of what data is available and how it can be used to support them, then obviously it's going to be better for them. Just some other examples now around open data and sharing for good is one here in Australia with the Department of Education, Skills and Employment, and they're using data to increase the levels of employment. And here, we developed this Jobs Hub program, which was just through the impact of the pandemic and many people losing their jobs and being impacted by the availability of jobs, etc. So they developed this application, again, online, open to the public and to employers as well, using over 3,000 different data sources, including proprietary data. So data coming from websites like Qlik and Employment Hub and all these other bits and pieces, to pull data around what jobs were available around the country, what skills they were looking for, and provide the platform to allow people to search by location for roles that have been advertised in the past week. It allows users to then interact and click on the particular role to find matching jobs advertised in the local area. They can look at the different skills that they have and try and match their skills and set alerts to their requirements, so then they are alerted to when jobs of their particular that meet their qualifications or skills advertised. So it allows really clever, in demand and active participation around job hunting and job sourcing and employee sourcing. And remarkably, it just shows how much need there was. So within the first few weeks of the launch of this Job Hub platform, there was over 600 individual unique page views, which was mind blowing. So again, this is some screenshots of the applications that allows you, to click on the right hand side. You'll see that it's search by your particular location, whether it's in New South Wales or another rural or regional area. Then you can look at the different skills in demand. Here I've just selected age and disability carers, and you see what skills are required. You can look to see whether or not you need to undertake some skills improvement or professional development, or whether you have those skills they can look to apply for. But it allows some really clever interaction across there as well. One of these other big examples, this is one of our first forays into the big data world, is the UK prescribing chart. So there was, most countries as well have this burden of antimicrobial stewardship, so the overprescription of antibiotics, and they knew they had this big problem in the UK, but they really didn't know how they could address it. And they had these two huge data sets published on their websites. You know, they had the prescribing data and they had the GP data, but they could never combine the two together, or they never had a platform that was able to do that together. So what they did is just made the data available, and one of our colleagues in the UK downloaded it, and in the space of maybe 4 hours was able to pull those data sets together to give a complete view of a prescribing dashboard, which allowed people to start looking at, you know, where these amoxicillins or antibiotics were being prescribed, do some geoanalytics to see which regions had higher prescription rates, looking at the total number of prescriptions prescribed per doctor, et cetera, and start doing more proactive engagement with those clinicians around proper prescribing patterns and processes. So, you know, not to prescribe antibiotics for just common colds or flus, and do some more education around the community with that as well. So this this application was just built on a whim by one of our colleagues. They ended up presenting it to the NHS, and we gave it to them to then incorporate, because they'd never seen a view of this data themselves before. We also made it available to any researchers or clinicians that wanted access to it as well, so they can start getting, again, looking at the data to drive different sort of analyses and insights from that. And what this found was this wasn't just focused on just antibiotics, but you can start looking at things like opioids, so high-end drugs and highly addictive drugs, antidepressants, etc. So you can start looking at this. They had a field day with this application because they'd never been able to see this data this way. So it led to a lot of reform and best practice policy change across their government as well. Some other global examples here is one from the New South Wales Cancer Institute. This allows, this is an example of your STAN, the Singapore Tourism Analytics Network application. So an open source information system or a portal for Cancer Institute. So it allows data around incidence, mortality, survival rates across the state. But it also allows authenticated and unauthenticated access. So this website is open to all, but also has an authenticated area where you can access to start, you know, looking at things around clinical trials. So you can start looking at recruitment, participation, and other bits and pieces as well. So you can start looking at bits and pieces around how you can engage your particular cohorts here. In this case, it's cancer, to start seeing how you can get engaged and maybe get involved in clinical trials that often you may have missed, which is a powerful sort of a tool for people with serious cancer. This is another example from Norway, who do some really clever things around public accounts. So this is a digital tool to increase citizen engagement around where they're spending their money, who disposes of the money, which different agencies, how they can use that money to get better awareness of how the money is being spent, where it's being spent, on what programs, etc. So they can start using that. And they use this a lot in their political campaigns and funding as well. This one is an example of your STAN, your great STAN tool, which is the data analytics platform to view visualizations and perform analysis on your tourism-related dashboard data aggregated from STB in the industry. And really, it's about deriving actual insights about Singapore's visitors and how you can gain access and use the data around, you know, tourism data around, you know, promotions and other bits and pieces, promotions, discounts, tour staffing, all that kind of stuff as well. And the last one, or a couple of last ones I'll talk about, I know I've gone a bit over time, but another one from the Department of Finance and the Government of Dubai, who are using this information to share around all government services and values that those services are accredited by the government. So, you know, you can look at government services, security and justice, economic development, etc. It allows different visualizations that are all interactive. So as you make a selection, you can drill down further into that information. You can start doing things around, you can search and select for different data, so you can filter and then extract the information. And this visualization on the right-hand chart is really clever. It's almost like one of those Sankey diagrams, which also shows the relationship between sectors and entities. So you can see where government agencies are potentially sharing or collaborating on different projects or policies, funding, using the same funding, or who might be funding certain programs as well. So it's a really clever way of seeing how all government sort of interacts and plays nicely together, I'd say. And the last one I just want to quickly talk to is the Avon and Somerset Office of Data Analytics Mission. And this is, we know Singapore is great at this as well, where you start sharing, cross-agency sharing to look at, a particular issue, so sharing health information with emergency services or social welfare or whatever it may be. But the Avon and Somerset in the UK have gone another step ahead. So they want to look at reducing vulnerability and harm to deliver safer communities across their different portfolios. And they want to reduce demand for public services and get people, smarter about how they can interact and how they can intervene with people at risk across their communities. So these are the key partners. There's over 60 different partner organisations in this jurisdiction in Avon and Somerset. You've got police, fire, you've got the actual council, the local council, the roads authority, the home office, you've got ambulance services, other police departments, etc. But it's all about providing, everyone sharing. They come up with a memorandum of understanding to share this information together, assist Avon or Somerset host this information, and they start providing a portal around different applications to focus on how they can start, providing better caring services to their community. So looking at serious youth offence, adverse childhood experiences, missing people, troubled families, predicting pleas, reducing suicide, arson, etc. So looked at these problem areas that were affecting their whole community, decided to share information rather than looking at things in isolation. And they found, some significant insights from being able to just share, breaking down those silos and start sharing information in a more proactive manner so they can address these before they happen, looking at intervention rather than providing care or support after the fact. So that was just another example around, how you can share and receive the information for better good. So just some take-home messages. Obviously, open data must be for everyone. So it's a right for all. It must be the data that the people need, and must be data that people can easily use, because, when government and citizens come together, it can be really, really powerful and really impactful. So that's it from me, CK. I know I went a bit over time, but I hope that was okay.
Thanks, Charlie. No problem. I think everyone is captivated by the stories that you've told. And I certainly hope that this have helped to inspire today's participants, whether it's for the upcoming data arcade tournament or something that your agency is doing.